I would now request Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji to let us all know more about the book Snakes in the Ganga. Welcome, sir.
Namaste. I'm honored to be here. I've been here many times, given talks in this auditorium, thanks to the Center for Indic Studies at Indus University. I was involved at the very beginning when they were creating this center, and Nagesh Bhandariji has been a great friend and fellow traveler on this journey. I also want to thank Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, a great friend and fellow traveler as well, and we worked together on many areas, and his speech on this book and Harvard in particular are outstanding examples of the resonance. I hope and fully support his decision to go and sue Harvard. I think we have a lot of evidence in this book itself and a lot more. The big size of the book should not scare you. I'll tell you how you can read it in 3 or 4 hours. There is an introduction which summarizes the whole book. Then every chapter has a one-page overview. The one-page overview tells you what is the main thesis that we are arguing. What is the main point? Bullet points sometimes, just summary, 1 page, maybe 1.5 pages. When you are done with that, you will know everything that the book is saying. For the evidence, a lawyer makes a thesis, and then he says, Exhibit 1 proves this, Exhibit 2 proves this, that's testimony, that's whatever evidence. The evidence is what's in the details. So if you are a lawyer who wants to argue a case, you need to read the evidence. If you are a scholar who wants to write a dissertation, you need to read the evidence. The Center for Indic Studies should read the evidence and develop courses on it, which we are thinking of doing together. But the average person who needs it as a war manual, how to be an intellectual Kshatriya, how to understand what is going on in the world, better than media explains to you, better than reacting here, reacting there, but understanding the whole project, how to connect the dots, what is a deep thesis, what is a deep argument, what is a deep case against India that is called Breaking India 2.0. To understand all of that, you don't need to read each chapter in detail. So if you read the introduction and the overview of every one of those chapters, you will know what is in the book, and that you can do in a few hours. After you have done that, you can go to any chapter by itself without reading cover to cover. There is a chapter on attack on IITs, Harvard's attack on IITs. I'll discuss it in a moment. It's chapter 4. Just go there, complete. The IITians have not responded. I'm responding on their behalf. Why have they not responded when the attack is so serious on them? And there are legal cases being filed in Silicon Valley based on that premise that IITs are a bastion of casteism and hence racism in the American system. And therefore, all these Silicon Valley people who are from IITs and other engineering colleges, the tech people, they are bringing caste into America and racism into America, and they should be prosecuted under American law. There are lawsuits right now. And so this has become a very serious matter. I will talk about this whole idea of mapping caste as racism. I'll just discuss it. But I'm just giving you an example of one chapter which will tell you what's going on and my response to it. People in Harvard have written a whole book attacking IIT. Its name of the book is that, and it's written by Ajanta Subramanian, a young Indian professor at Harvard, published by Harvard University Press. So, you have the backing of the whole university, and this is being spread because of Harvard brand name. It's being spread everywhere, and it's bringing a bad name and legal problems for Indian tech workers, including a lobby that says the H-1B visa should be caste-oriented. There should be quotas. And there should be minority quotas and caste quotas even in H-1B. And every American company that hires Indians in the United States or in India should do a caste census like the US requires race census. So, you're going to be tagged if you're Indian by what caste and all that. Now, of course, our side is fighting back, of course. But this has become a very big thing. This is part of the wokeism. So if you want to understand the entire, attack on a IIT par hamla, you read one chapter. That's it. And that will tell you. So if you want to read what is Anand Mahindra doing, he's an auto manufacturer. What is he doing in humanities and postmodernism at Harvard? He's funded something called the Mahindra Humanities Center at Harvard. And the director is one of the most famous and anti-India, anti-Hindu, well-known postmodernists who writes all these articles that India is a sham democracy and things of that kind. So if you want to know more about what is Mahindra doing, you don't have to read the whole book, you read one chapter. If you want to read about Lakshmi Mittal, there is something called Lakshmi Mittal and Family South Asia Institute at Harvard, where all these kind of things happen about South Asia studies. And the strange thing is, when these people are speaking, in the back, the banner says Lakshmi Mittal South Asia Studies. His family name is being implicated. His money and name are being implicated when all these things are going on. Whether he personally knows or not, we can't say. Maybe it is happening without him knowing, but he ought to know. And we are like auditors telling him something. So there's a separate chapter on that, on Lakshmi Mittal Center. So like this, the different chapters, if you want to know on China, the involvement of China at Harvard, and through that in entering India, you can read, there are 2 chapters on that. So the book is divided in a way that you get an overview very quickly, and then you can just stop there or go into one chapter here, there, whatever you feel like. I claim that this book will be as more important in the next 10 years than the first Breaking India was in the past 10 years, in terms of how much it is revealing and how important these topics will become. And just like we have hundreds of channels, YouTube channels and manthans and all that, based on the previous Breaking India, that are talking about all these things, about this whole Aryan theory and this caste divisiveness and this the Dravidianism and foreign involvement and NGOs, all these cases against FCRA being blocked. We started all this movement. So now we are starting a new movement. The reason this is necessary is lack of awareness. We have achieved in the last dozen years emotional awakening. So it's very important emotionally people are awakened. So I don't have the same credibility problem like I had that time. When I first came out with Breaking India, I was told by so many Hindu leaders कि क्या कर रहे हैं आप, बदनामी कर रहे हैं, कोई ऐसा प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, सब कुछ ठीक है, कितने मंदिर हैं, मंदिरों में जाते हैं, पूजा घर में करते हैं. I mean, they did not understand that the discourse in the universities moves into think tanks, moves into the foreign governments, and they make resolutions and foreign policies. It moves into media, the journalists are trained there. It comes to Indian academics, it comes to Indian parliament, it comes to Indian judiciary, it comes to Indian UPSC exams, it comes to NCRT syllabus. All of this discourse comes. They did not understand. Even my recent discussion with Arnab Goswami, where we agree on most things. At the end, he's not sure why it matters, why we should worry about all this. We are so great. So to respond to that, because I think a lot of people are saying the same, wondering the same thing. You know, when Max Miller came up with the Aryan theory, it was also abandoned and ignored by our thinkers, saying, who cares, he's an ignorant fellow. Just like he was telling me yesterday, Arnab Goswami, that Harvard is ignorant, why should we worry about it, they're 10,000 miles away, what can they do? People have said the same thing about Max Miller's Aryan invasion theory. Why should we worry what he says, truth is in my heart, we are 5,000 years old, all this kind of stuff. Okay, but today, in Tamil Nadu, the whole politics is Dravidianism, which is based on Aryanism. As long as there is Aryan, there is Dravidian. They're mirror images of each other, 2 sides of the coin. So so therefore we are suffering. This is the consequence of not taking the opponent seriously. Another example is the caste system. Prior to Lord Risley, we had Varna Jati, but the collapse into the current hierarchical caste system, fixing it was done by Risley in the late 1800s, and his mentors were all Oxford educated. And Oxford was in those days like Harvard is today. It was the central think tank of all these things. But our people didn't respond at that time. Our intellectuals didn't respond. They're supposed to have given a rejoinder, but nobody bothered, kya ho raha hai, chalo, chalne do. That was a problem. If you look more recently, when my first Breaking India book came out, I have so many letters and emails from our own Hindu leaders saying, ke mat kariye baat. So I introduced the term Hindu phobia, because there was Islamophobia. And I was given this idea after a discussion with Professor Akbar Ahmed, a Pakistani High Commissioner to England, who after retirement became a visiting professor at Princeton University. And since I lived there, we became friends. And he invited me one day to a book launch of some Islamophobia book. So I said, what is this Islamophobia? So he told me that we have to be very careful. We have to respond to everybody who criticizes us. That is called Islamophobia. So then I said, but people are doing this to Hinduism. And then I thought, why don't we have Hindu phobia? We should talk about Hindu phobia. So I searched the internet. Islamophobia, I got lakhs of hits of people talking about it. Hindu phobia, 0 hits. So even though the word Hindu phobia might have existed, somebody knew it 100 years ago, but it was not in the popular discourse. Nobody was taking it seriously. So I started talking about Hindu phobia, wrote about it in 2005 in one of my books, and then continued talking. So it became a common word. So we cannot just ignore the threats, we cannot ignore the other side because we think that we know it all or they don't count and so on and so forth. More recently, the book Battle for Sanskrit, which was launched here, as Nageshji said, basically exposed that not only is there distortion in the way Sanskrit is being taught in the Western world by people who are very fluent in Sanskrit, who come here, they're wearing tilak, they have dhotis, they are doing all kind of rituals, making it look like they're very, very much part of us, but what they are writing is actually rubbish and very dangerous for us. A big book exposing that. Not only they are doing that, but they have convinced the Shringeri Mutt, the Gauri Shankar, the big administrator, Padam Shri Award winner, who's the administrator there, they've convinced him with an MOU to take over the representation of Adi Shankara in the United States as per their interpretation. And this would kill us. This would have finished us off. And I had to go, that whole book tells the story of how I went, convinced the Shringeri Shankaracharya to put a stop on it, wait for my book to come out, let my book come out, read it, and then make a decision whether this is a good project or a dangerous project. And thanks to Bhagwan and thanks to Shiva, the Shankaracharya decided no such thing will happen, and that's how we prevented that from happening. So, you know, there is a price you pay, the examples I gave, there is a price you pay if you ignore these threats, and it's better to attack them right away when so this book is doing the same. Now let's talk about this book. This book is basically explaining how Marxism got Americanized in a very interesting way, and nobody thinks that this is Marxism, but it is actually a new avatar or a new reincarnation of Marxism. And Marx had talked about oppressed and oppressor. That everybody, whoever is oppressed, there is somebody oppressor. And the job is to overthrow the oppressor. The oppressor made the discourse called Hegemonic Discourse, means the discourse that everybody has to read. And so now the oppressed people, jo dabai hue gaye hain, they have to counter it and make counter discourse. And so this whole idea started that you must silence the oppressor and only the oppressed can speak. And the oppressed is called special protected class. All these terms exist in wokeism. And this is called cancel culture in wokeism, that you cancel those you don't like. So if you don't like Dr. Swami, you don't like Rajiv, Malhotra, you don't like certain people because of what they are saying, you cancel them because they are the oppressor. So this whole business of fighting the oppressor in an unreasonable way, without using the true liberal discourse, the true open speech, free speech, without using that, justifying it because they have to be toppled. This is a Marxist idea. But in Marx, it was only economic classes. It was not races. Marx did not say races, black versus white. He did not say religions. Marx did not say genders, that some genders are suppressed. Marx said economic classes. So this later became Marxism 2.0 during the Frankfurt School in Germany. And there they expanded the idea of Marxism into something else. And now there is a 3.0 Marxism, which they don't want to admit is Marxism, but I explain in my book, this is Marxism. And this is critical race theory, the critical race theory where they mapped it onto blacks and whites and so on. Now, what does it have to do with India? It has to do with India because they mapped critical race theory to critical caste theory. So please remember, as it applies to India, it's called critical caste theory, critical minorities theory, critical LGBTQ theory. All these people who are supposed to be pichdi jati, suppressed, oppressed, unke liye, unko upar uthane ke liye, you have to defeat India. You have to break up India, you have to break up Hindu Dharma, because that will liberate these people the same way the Marxists want to liberate through a revolution. So critical caste theory becoming the critical race theory becoming critical caste theory, you must understand. So there is a whole book by one African American who collaborated with the Ambedkar people in India, and they gave her all this knowledge, what their idea, which is not accurate. And she wrote this book. She's a Pulitzer Prize winner, Oprah Book Club, New York Times #1 bestseller, saying something as follows. The thesis says that caste is the origin of racism in America. Caste is the origin of racism in America because British came to India and they read all these old Shastras and they learned how caste is working to divide society, how to oppress people, how to push them back. They learned it from the Brahmins. Then they came to America and they then learned how to oppress the blacks. So basically the Hindu Shastras and the Vedic theories of caste informed the racist white people on how to do this to the blacks. So they learned it. And then the Nazis learned it from the British, from American experience, and they took it to persecute the Jews. So this whole fascism also comes out of it. So therefore, when you read all this stuff that Hindus are fascist, Vedic origin is fascist, Brahmins are fascist, there is a whole theory and a whole discourse which has been developed to support that kind of point of view. So the theory says Dalits are like blacks of India, and the non-Dalits are the whites of India. And caste is racism. Now this has become law. The state of California have said casteism is law, is racism. Harvard has a policy that if there is any caste, if anything is happening which refers to caste, it is to be seen as race in the American context. Race is a very serious allegation. It's a lot of criminal things. And so now what they are saying is that just like there is race census in big publicly held companies, the very giant companies are required to do a race census. And the HR department conducts courses on how to avoid racism. And they have an expert on racism in every big HR department who will then adjudicate if there is any issue or a complaint. So they're requiring that now it needs to be a caste expert in every HR department. And you have to do a caste survey among Indian tech workers or Indian workers because they bring racism to America in the name of caste, as caste. So this is a very serious issue. Now, this, I found that the problems coming out of this are sometimes US foreign policy says you got social justice problem. And in India, they don't know what is going on, social justice problem. They're saying you don't have religious freedom is coming out of this. But our people haven't figured out where is it coming from. So Jai Shankar goes around firefighting. You know, like a firefighter who's got a fire extinguisher, yahan par aag bujha di, yahan par aag bujha di. But he has not figured out where is it coming from, what is the source. So if you have a tree which is giving you poisonous fruits, you should figure out your roots, what's the DNA in the roots, what is the tattva, where is the poison being born. If you have a lot of saamp, bichu aa rahe hain, so you have to figure out inka ghonsla kahan hai, where is the nest, where are they being born, bred, nurtured, exported from there. So I decided that we should do research to find out where is it coming from? Where is all this poison coming from? You see article in Washington Post, you see article against India in New York Times, in Wall Street Journal, many of them authored by Indians only. But who are these snakes? Who trained them? Who trains all this kind of a media that is writing these kind of things? BBC part of it, Al Jazeera part of it. So we found that the headquarters, while during the British East India Company used to be Oxford, from where it spread, it is now Harvard University, from where it is spread. It is happening also in Stanford, in Brown University, Princeton University, various places, but there is nothing as big and prestigious and powerful as Harvard championing this thing. So this is surprise number 2. Surprise number 1 is that there is a theory. What is a theory of this critical caste, stuff, all of this oppressed and oppressor, how to break up India? Theoretical, there is the first thing we explain in this book is what is the theoretical framework being used so that you recognize it. When you read, when you come across some example, you will say, I know what it is. I know why they're saying, where they're getting it from. And you can go dig deeper and get the backup also in the book. The second big surprise is that this is a systematic piece of work being done, and it is done, the headquarters of this is Harvard University. It is the nest of snakes, Sampo ka ghonsla. That is, we could have made another title like that also. Then the third surprise, Indian billionaires are funding it. Indian billionaires are funding it. It is not, Dekhi, I'll give you a secret, I'll tell you right now. We have not exposed it before, but I would like to expose this. We had a contract to publish this book with one of the biggest publishers in India. I don't want to name because they're my friends. 90 days before, 75 to 90 days before the book was supposed to be launched, and we had made plans, many places to launch this book, publicity all out. They called me and said, we can't publish it because it is naming all these very big names, and it is bad for our business. It is bad, the gentleman said, it is bad for my business if I'm blacklisted by all these big billionaires and you're criticizing this and that. So we cannot publish this book unless you change and don't name them. So I said, if there is any inaccuracy, if there is anything we've said we can't substantiate, I will change it. So why don't you have a review? I'll give you 10 days, I'll hold everything, but 10 days you give me every place that you think we should change because it is something wrong. They came up with more than 1,000 places to change. Drop this name. Don't say Anand Mahindra Center. Don't say Lakshmi Mittal Center. Just say some group somewhere. I said, but that is what it is called. On their website, it is called Mahindra Humanities Center. This is their logo. This is their building. I have a photograph of it. We have photographs. We have videos of their people speaking. Why should we not name them when they are naming it? They are very proud of what they are doing. And I'm not blaming them. I'm not saying that the Indian industrialists are snakes. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in their name and with their money and associated with their centers, there are other snakes being created and encouraged. So in a sense, they are feeding the snakes. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. But we can't stop naming them. We have to say it. They might come back to me and say, Rajiv, thank you for telling me this, but it's my money. I'll do what I want. I believe in all this. I believe in wokeism. I believe that that is what's going to help India. Please go away. Fine. I can't stop it. I'll say, fine, thank you. I've given my position. I've exposed what is going on with your name. If you like it, continue. They might say that, and it's fine. I have no problem. I don't intend to push it further. Or they might say, thank you very much telling me. I didn't know this, and now I know it. So what I say is like, they hire financial auditors, they hire Ernst & Young and Deloitte and Touche and Price Waterhouse and whatnot, all these people, to give them an audit of what may be wrong in their company. Not that the auditor wants to harm you, but he's telling you so that you know and then you can solve the problems. So we are a civilizational audit. We are doing a civilizational audit about their philanthropy. Whatever they're doing as philanthropists, we are giving an audit saying what is good or bad for the country. And not everything is bad, by the way. Harvard has got a lot of great things. Harvard is great in science, mathematics, engineering, medicine. It's very good for STEM education. But when it comes to humanities and social sciences applied to India and social justice, issues, human rights issues, gender studies issues, minority issues. They're supporting Khalistanis, they're supporting Kashmir separatists, they're supporting Rohingyas, they're supporting all kind of things that have anybody who has a problem with the Indian state and the Indian civilization, they're supporting those people. So it is okay for people like me to expose this. What's wrong? Harvard is supposed to be the center of free thinking. So we can also, as free thinkers, tell this. And they have cancelled us, but we can write a book. Then there are people who say, why didn't you go and tell the Indian billionaires privately? Okay. 2 reasons. More than 10 years ago, Mr. Guru Murthy, when he heard my talks, even 10 years ago I was saying all these things, he said, I want you to go and explain this to Anand Mahindra in Bombay. He's a very reasonable man. He has not yet invested in Harvard. He's thinking about it. You go and warn him. I went to Bombay and I sat in his office. He served me very nice lunch. He's a very nice gentleman, very calm, gentle, decent human being. And he heard me. And I left a hard copy of my PowerPoint slides to him. I said, please evaluate it. And if I were you, I would not go funding it. So he knows my position. Now, I could easily say, why didn't they tell me if they are going to do it? Because they know I'm an expert. I've been chasing Harvard for 30 years, and I'm a scholar of what all they are up to. So why didn't they instead of me approaching them, I already approached them. They could have approached me before doing all this, but they didn't. So therefore, it's okay for me to go public and write a book on it. Why not? So, and similarly, I went and met Ajay Piramal, and in the Piramal Towers, twice I met him, many years back. And I said the same thing, that this is what's going on, the narrative of India is being spoiled, these are the people doing it, this is what's wrong about it, this is what the examples of what they're saying, this is how it causes harm. It comes to India, it comes to these Indian universities, then it's spread from here, it teaches our wrong things to people in the media, and therefore we should go not fund those people. But he funded it. There is a Piramal Center in Harvard. So I am quite clear that I had to do this publicly because nothing else worked, nobody else listened. I'm also very clear, my intentions are very good. I have no ill will towards these billionaires. I wish them well. They're good for India, they're creating jobs, and I have more power to them. I want them to be successful. But when it comes to the portrayal of India in a foreign country, I have invested my whole life and I'm an expert on that and I have a right to speak and I will speak whether these guys like it or not, and I hope they take it fairly. So now the question is, have we considered Harvard as the Vishwaguru? We keep saying, hum Vishwaguru hain. It's nice to have slogans and nice to have wishful thinking. That's wishful thinking. But if our own discourse is being determined there, and that discourse is coming here, and even our Supreme Court Justice quoting wokeism. We have a YouTube video, which my co-author put out, and several tweets with little 2-minute videos. You can go to @Rajiv Message, and follow me on Twitter, and you will see we put up these videos showing Justice Chandrachud quoting the very same people at Harvard, naming them, and these people at Harvard are writing this, he's quoting it, and these are the people on which we have written 1 chapters. We've written a whole chapter 5 on Suraj Yengde at Harvard Kennedy School, who is the poster boy for this Afro-Dalit project. A young man, very charismatic, very intelligent, bright, but he's on their side. So so like that we have several separate chapters on different people who are doing like dangerous work for our country. They have a right to do it because it's free speech. They have a right, and we have a right to criticize them. So we are doing all of this quite openly, and we just want people to sort of know about it. Now I'll tell you a few things that are happening in India as a result of this, because people should not think what happens at Harvard stays at Harvard. It doesn't stay at Harvard. It's so powerful, it's like almost an empire. It goes all over the world. They are training the leaders, political leaders, they're training the think tanks, they have Newman Center, which trains the journalists, all over the world. So when you see why people in various media are writing all this, because they've been trained, they are now training the children of our industrialists. Harvard, $70,000 a year tuition is not cheap. So the elite send their kids there, and these people do very well. they have established a lot of influence in India. While the national education policy has many good things, I'm never criticizing something as being totally bad or find it totally good. There are good things and bad things. While there are many good things also, the problem is that the NEP 2020 is promoting liberal arts, and this liberal arts which is being promoted is the Harvard liberal arts. It is not Vedic liberal arts. It is not the 64 kalas. It is not the Arthashastras and Dharmashastras and what is the ethics from Mahabharata and all that. It is the social science, the humanities model of India, the caste model of India, the minority criticism, the gender studies, all these studies, different kinds. It is that idea of liberal arts by professors at those foreign places, Harvard being the biggest one, which has been brought into India, and which is now going to IITs, it's going to IIMs. So we are going to spread that poison by inviting those snakes because the NEP policy says so. Another part of the NEP policy is, you see, Harvard and various American think tanks and corporate people also have been doing a lot of data gathering in India, which is very useful for artificial intelligence, for big data, for machine learning. They have been gathering a lot of data which is very sensitive for manipulating politics, making people vote a certain way. You need to know their profile, what they like, what they don't like. Then you can make them vote a certain way, buy certain products, convert their religion, make them violent and fight each other. That is why social media often gets banned and blocked, because when there's some unrest. They block it, the governments block it because social media is used to incite people. And the way it can incite people is by knowing the profile of every individual. So these foreign entities have been doing data mining. A lot of them, in the name of public health, are mining genetic data in India. A lot of them are mining data on the, all the elections in the villages, the panchayats, what is the caste composition, religious composition in every district, every village. These people are mining it like crazy. And we have allowed it. Nobody here is stopping it. Now, previously, places like Harvard would send their money here to get this work done. But what has happened is now they've set up Indian establishments which are tax exempt from the Indian government. So you can give in rupee donation to them, get tax write-off, which means the Indian taxpayer is subsidizing it, and that money is used to do research in India for them. So the taxpayer is subsidizing and funding places like Harvard to set up think tanks to do research on us, which helps them become more powerful in managing us. This is so stupid, and this has been allowed. So, I am not opposed to criticizing whoever it is. I don't care. Ashoka University is proud to be the Harvard of India. So they brought all these ideas into India. So the elite people send their kids. Can you just stop please, baad mein kar lena. Thank you so much. So it's okay. So the elite people in India send their kids they pay 10, 12 lakhs a year. So it is not for poor Aam Aadmi. So the elites are being wokeized. They are being turned into woke. It is not just for the grassroots level people, this is for people at the top level. IAS officers there are programs in the Indian government. They go to Kennedy School and take courses, and they learn all this stuff and come back with the Harvard Thappa, and they're considered very important. There are people in Harvard's Mittal Institute of South Asia. There are people like that there who are serving in committees in Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog has some people like that serving in such committees. There are Indian ministries that are making policies where the policies are quoting the Harvard policies on India. Harvard is becoming like the policy think tank on India. You see, philanthropy has two parts. If you are doing philanthropy, the good part is when you are offering services. Khana de rahe hain, clothing, housing, medical aid, education. You're providing services. That's very good. Traditionally, Indians did that. But what the Westerners want Indians to invest in is policy making, political activism. That is where you divide through policy. You come up with a policy on minorities. Harvard making policy on minorities? What is their business? Why are we listening to them? So you see, the invasion of India through this thing is very widespread. I haven't in this trip gone to Mumbai because we ran out of time. We'll go coming back in February and we'll go to Mumbai. And I want to face all the industrialists, bring them together and talk about it, all these things. One of the most fashionable things in corporate India, because they've copied it from World Economic Forum, and World Economic Forum got this idea from Harvard Kennedy School and Harvard Business School. This is called ESG, Environment, Social Justice, Governance. So every company is now got ESG officer. And this ESG officer is supposed to promote environmentalism, social justice, governance. My problem is with the S, social justice. So what are they doing to promote social justice? Whose idea of social justice? This is not an Indian Vedic idea of social justice. This is the idea of Harvard on social justice, which they are implementing. And this is exactly this business about casteism and so on, and minorityism and quotas. So now it's entering the corporate world. It's entering the corporate world. Because if your ESG score is good, then the foreign investment is better for you. Foreign investment is being linked to good ESG score. And who decides the ESG score? It's people like McKinsey, Deloitte and Touche, these kind of people, the 5 or 6 major American consulting houses who are making a killing on this. So first they come and say, we will do an ESG audit of your company, Mr. Mahindra. We'll do an ESG audit to make sure your ranking is good. And then you'll be doing well, you'll get in foreign investment, and we'll be doing it for you, Mr. Mittal, and for Mr. Piramal, and for Mr. Bajaj, and for Mr. Tata. So they are invited and they do all this review and they charge millions of dollars and they tell you that this is how you improve your ESG rating. So these people listen. So this ESG rating opens the gate for wokeism to come in the name of social justice. This is an original point we are making in this book. There are many original points. The entry of wokeism into the corporate world through ESG is a very big point we made in this book, and we explained it in great detail. And that social justice part of ESG is further expanded into a movement called DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Means you have to have diversity of people, which of course we Indians already have it. Equity means you have to be equal equity. Inclusion means sabko include karo, but this is not some American idea. When the Americans bring it with their training, with all of this wokeism lens, it's to divide people. It's to talk about oppressor and oppressed in the corporate world. You have oppressed people in your corporate world, and there are oppressors in your corporate world, and the oppressed should overthrow the oppressors. Then there's another movement from the United States linked to the World Economic Forum, and that is called Religious Freedom in Business. There is a foundation for religious freedom in business. Now guess what? When I wrote my artificial intelligence book, some people invited me to be a member of the board of something called AI and Faith, Artificial Intelligence and Faith. So I said, this is very interesting. They have Christians, they have Jews, they have Muslims, they have all these people. And I criticized that the artificial intelligence algorithms have a problem with Hinduism because they're biased, they have a bias against Hinduism. I've given a lot of examples. So to kind of keep me quiet or maybe buy me out or hush it or whatever, they invited me to be on their board. So I became the Hindu member on their board of advisors. So I wrote some articles, they published my articles. And I thought, okay, I will influence them. Then I found out that the parent, the organization that is the real BAP, Ma-BAP, is called the Foundation for Religious Freedom in Business. So I said, this is very interesting. Who is running it? The person who's running it was head of the same fellow in the US Commission on International Religious Freedom that told the US Congress that India does not have religious freedom. India is persecuting Christians and Muslims and Dalits and Rohingyas and all that. All of that nonsense that India has to deal with is his organization, government funded, was doing it. And now he's started this organization to enter corporate. So in his website, he called me, he was very happy that a Hindu has joined. He thought I'll be on his side. And he needs a Hindu to look good. So I learned a lot. I put 3 of my people as interns, as volunteers, as scholars. He said, we're looking for scholars. I put 3 of my people into his organization to find out what they're up to. What exactly are they doing? And we found that all the stuff, what they're doing, they're mapping, they're keeping track, they're making a map of who's who, how Hinduism works, how are they making decisions, what are the bodies and organizations and paramparas, how to influence, all of that. And so this is another entry into India, the corporate side. So you have the ESG entry, the DEI entry, the religious freedom entry, and many others. So you see, when you look at the invasion of India, I haven't even talked about Omidyar network. Omidyar network in the south is very big and a huge problem. I haven't talked about Ambedkar versus wokeism. Ambedkar was not wokist. Ambedkar was not wokist. And these people who are wokists, in the name of Ambedkar, they've distorted many of his ideas. So I'll go on, but I think time is running out. I would like to suggest that people who get copy of this book and should read and at least one chapter, write a review. That's all I expect. Because once you get hooked to it, you will realize that in a matter of weeks or months, you'll want to read another chapter. Or you'll come across some problem in the world, and this book will tell you how to think about it, how to give an answer. So that's what I would like to suggest. And in closing, I want to thank Dr. Bhandari and Mrs. Bhandari for organizing this, and Indus University, and my dear friend Ram Sharma, who is the head of the Center for Indic Civilization, and also Dr. Swami, my dear friend, for gracing this occasion. I work very hard. This is all I do. This is with my tan, man, dhan. This is all I do. And it's for people like you to support me. Thank you.